Hi, I'm Susan Reynolds, and I'm taking a different approach this week to getting our discussion up and running. I'm in my laundry room right now because it's the only quiet place in the house. I've got the dishwasher going, I've got two middle schoolers working on what they need to work on, and a puppy who will not let me out of her sight. First of all, in terms of RTI and Jaden's case, I teach adults. I did quite a bit of Googling to see if I could find if there was any adult equivalent to RTI and the different tiers offered. And as far as I can tell, there isn't in higher education. I inquired at my testing center at my school, and I spoke with a friend of mine who works in the student disabilities office. And the statement was that students come in with their disability statements or their IEPs, but there's no intervention that is directly coordinated by a teacher. What we do or what we can do is we can only make recommendations. So if we feel a student needs tutoring, we can recommend to them where they can go. The Student Academic Success Center offers free tutoring 5 days a week on the common subjects, math, English, writing, things like that. We can also work and recommend with the students' advisors and then perhaps set up a recommendation for them to see what services the school offers. But it's something that the student has to make a commitment to want to do. The school can only put forth recommendations and suggestions for these things, in a large part because the students are considered legal adults. And they should know, or we can't force them to do anything and have a different standing than minors do. In terms of Jaden, I kept thinking about Jaden's mother, and she had 6 children, with her 8-year-old being her second eldest. To me, that's a big indicator of how much support or tutoring Jaden might have access to at home that might be helping or might benefit him with his reading scores and his phonetic awareness. As a parent, I would talk with the teacher. I would try to educate myself as best I could on what services were available for my son, what different criteria were needed to get him tested. I would try to ascertain whether or not I felt he needed to be tested. Talk with the school guidance counselor if there is one. Definitely speak with his teachers. See what the statewide mandates are and the county, the district, has to offer. So the best that I would do is educate myself. As a teacher, I am not in a program that has ever offered those type of services, nor in a program that would ever do so, since I don't plan on teaching anybody under the age of 18. Reflection on the reading. Personally, what I got out of it was my son has ADHD. He's 12. And this is his first year in public school. He spent pre-K through 6th grade in the Montessori system. One reason I kept him in Montessori for so long was our local elementary school where my daughter attends. She's thriving. It's a great school. I spoke with the counselor there about my son, and he was diagnosed with ADHD through a private resource, and it's been documented, and his doctor backs up on it. I did not like the presentation, and she gave it to me more than once, on what the school could do to help my son. Basically now, reading from our reading, I understand what she was explaining to me was that that particular elementary offers a program-based RTI format. And the bells finally connected out. It's been, 3 years since all of this happened with my son. What I didn't like as a parent when I was speaking originally with this particular counselor was the fact that it seemed like my son had to be evaluated through the various criteria, the tier one diagnostics that everyone would do, that the whole classroom does, teacher observations, that it would take a year before a school year before they would even bring in a school psychologist for further education, for further testing. And the frustrating point for me on this was the fact that my son had already been diagnosed and ADHD interventions had already been implemented in his Montessori school, dietary changes for ADHD, and they were benefiting. So there was no doubt on my mind that it was a correct diagnosis for my son. And it seemed like the way the elementary school presented it to me as a parent was, well, they would have to do their own diagnosis. That the fact that I'd had private done, both from a medical point of view and a psychological point of view, was not valid. So he ended up in Montessori, which was fine, which actually benefited him quite a bit. This year, I should say last year in Montessori, things were not clicking well for him. He was struggling. And so we went to our local middle school and he went through the testing. But this time around, it was straightforward. The district had 90 days where they had to get the testing done, his evaluation done, what their recommendations were, and I could either take those recommendations back to his private school or they could accommodate and work with him in the public school. It started in December, and by the end of March, it was recommended that my son be on an IEP and the various criteria that he would be meeting with that. He's on board with it. He likes it. And so far, so good. The first 9 weeks of school have proven to be marvelously successful. So it's just different. The elementary school was going to have him tested, retested, looked at, evaluated, incrementally plotted on the graphs. And the middle school just jumped right in and got something done within a 90-day period. As a parent, I don't regret what I did. And that's the best I can offer is from the parental perspective and not from the professional educational perspective. Learned a lot this week. Looking forward to learning more from the rest of you. Thanks.